God of the universe, maker of the stars, who am I that you would know my name?
Well, welcome back to another episode of Life on Purpose, otherwise known as Four Guys Yakking. You've got Mike, you've got Ryan, you've got Daniel, and you've got Dave, and we are happy that
Yeah.
you're back with us.
Yes.
And we're excited for this week's episode.
Heck yeah.
And-
Happy to yak.
Oh, by the way,
Happy to be yak.
before we
Oh,
do
no,
happy
it's
yak
bad.
thing, one of us is older.
Oh, who could that be?
Mm,
I mean, technically all of us, right?
technically, all
Yeah,
of us.
Yep.
But
Yes.
one
It's
person
Ryan.
he hit the 30 milestone.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
You
Yeah.
made it. You're
If I
maturing.
was a particular kind of person, I would make some kind of joke about the rest of it being either uphill or downhill, but I'll just leave it alone.
I appreciate that. I had somebody look me square in the face yesterday and say, well, it's all downhill from here. And I was like, well, thank you.
That just means you're picking up speed.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take that.
Yes.
If it's Ryan, if it's uphill from where you're at, I'm in trouble.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah, please, let's
Yeah.
do that.
What are we talking about?
What?
I mean, squeak up.
Well, squeak up.
Squeak up.
We've been
Oh,
talking
speaking of
about.
squeak up, yeah.
I like the way Mike phrased it. Hang on, I'm pulling up my text messages, y'all,
Uh-oh.
Oh
because
no.
he phrased it a
Text
certain way,
messages?
and I want to read it.
Don't give away trade secrets.
I know, right? So this was the idea for today's episode. It says, "Becoming a man of Yah or a mouse of the multitudes." I think that's a good way to start. Let's discuss that.
Oof.
All right.
Well, I think that just jumping into the topic, we had a wonderful episode. If you did get a chance to listen to it, we really went into the experiment of mice utopia.
Yes.
And what that meant, what was their conclusion from a study that kind of has multiple different takes on it. And I think what we decided, there's one specific spot that it concluded over 25 times the exact same result, and we're looking at one aspect that led to a total change and ultimately the total destruction of the utopian colony of mice. And we're going to look at one spot that we briefly mentioned, but it needs to be looked into. And that spot is the moment when a lot of the male mice just gave up,
Mhm.
just spent time looking pretty, did nothing to
Oh.
try to look for a mate, did nothing to try to help out with the society, and just sat back and did nothing.
They just sat back and groomed themselves, sitting in
Right.
front of the mirror with a comb, a brush, some hair gel, a little moose.
Mhm.
Actually, no, it was mice.
Mm.
But basically, they did nothing. Maybe they had their little mice video game. Maybe they had mice flicks that they could watch all day. Binge watching mice flicks. Maybe they had their little, mouse internet things that they shouldn't have been watching about, female mice. And they just
Mm.
pretty much disconnected from society, and life became about them. And in the end, life became about, well, they were all dead. So life became about nothing.
Mm.
So if your life is about nothing now, don't be surprised when you end up at the end of your life and it's still nothing. How's that for some philosophizing? Is that what it's called?
Philosophizing.
Philosophization?
Philosophering.
Philosophering.
That's the new word.
Yeah.
Is that
Especially the
next to
mice with the
falafel?
fur. No, it's on the other aisle, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh,
Daniel, take us away there.
You know, it's a whole can that we're opening here. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a serious one,
um,
actually.
it very much is. If you really take a moment to look into the statistics of what happens when the husband and the father is removed from the family unit,
Mhm.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
actually. It's truly astonishing what happens to the family unit and which statistics of harmful things dramatically go up when that fatherly figure, that husband figure, is removed from the family. To the extent that if you have, and I'm talking about statistics for suicide or
Mhm.
crime or anything like that.
Mhm.
The statistics of drugs, of a child getting into things like that, if they are in a single father home, is even dramatically lower than if it's just a single mother home. And just to show like a quick thing on how important that fatherly figure is, those that because the father he's supposed to bring in the boundaries. That is the man's job, is like to bring in the boundaries for the security, the foundation, the pillar, that is part of being the biblical man. And when you remove that, it just dramatically increases all you know opportunities for bad things to happen to the other people of that family. um but a lot of that starts when you're young. Like you have to acknowledge these things young to know what the pitfalls are. And I think maybe part of this that we'll get into is what the biblical man is. And it's kind of like a threefold thing of the biblical man is supposed to be a priest, a warrior, and a husband.
Mhm.
And I put them specifically in that order because it's a priest. You are to be a disciple of God, a disciple of Yeshua, pursuing his way above the way of the world, above your own way. And then you're to be a warrior and be able to fight for that. And it's only when you have become a warrior under the covering of God that you are ready to be a husband and apply those things accordingly. If you try to be a warrior first and then go into being a priest and a husband, it doesn't work out as well. It's
Yeah.
because you end up taking that ferocity that a man should have toward evil and toward things that are coming against him and his family unit. You end up directing them at the family unit. And so, just some things to consider as we move forward.
Well said. Well said.
Very well said.
My applause to you. Yes.
So I think I'll jump in on that point. There's a quote that I'm remembering that I recently was scrolling through and seeing. You talked about that ferocity, and when we look at the mouse experiment, it does give a little bit of explanation as to why the mouse did what they did, but there's some factors that the mice did not have that we can look at our own lives and go, okay, this is what's affecting it. And we're absolutely seeing an assault, spiritually, psychologically. There's an assault on trying to make men not men,
Mhm.
trying to lessen their role, trying to put them. There is absolutely something. And again, I know that I'm just treading into this muck of the battle of the sexes, and I don't really want to get too deep into that, but I really want to look into the idea of we can recognize that everyone's being put down. Life's tough. Agreed. Let's focus on men though for a moment. And I think that with that being said, there's something unique about, like you said, Daniel, priest and warrior. Let's just take those two things because I do like the idea of putting priest before warrior. And it seems like other people have the same opinion. I like what a psychologist and now book writer Jordan Peterson talked about this concept of if you're not the most dangerous person in the room, but be careful. It's like, what do you mean by that? It's like men need to be dangerous and they know when to hold back.
Mhm.
They know how to discuss, go through things, but still also be the warrior, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
knowing how to fight, knowing how to do those things. And men have a unique
real quick.
ability for that.
I pulled up your quote, Dave, for you,
Mhm.
so you have an actual
Yeah, sure.
verbatim.
Go for it.
He said, "A harmless man is not a good
There you
man.
go.
A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary
There
control."
you go.
Wow.
There
Yeah.
you go. That's the quote I was looking for. I did
Sorry
butcher
to
it up pretty
interject,
bad.
but
You're right.
yeah.
No, that was the quote I was thinking about, and I was like trying to remember how it all worked together. But that idea, and if you hear that at first, you go, "Oh no, I don't like that." Like, wait, calm down, give it a second, because I think that there's a purpose behind man being able to be very, very dangerous, lethal, hunter. Like we think of all these like,
Mhm.
ooh, I'm gonna say it, toxic traits that maybe men have. However, if the balance is right within men, where you have that priesthood, the warrior. I'm sorry, I was focused on those two. What was the other third point, Daniel? What was that third one?
Husband.
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 If all three of those are working together, if we have all three of those working in a balance, then you don't see how it gets turns negative, which we see many, many cases of men being,
Hmm.
quite frankly, just very bad, evil, uh, etc. Like there's lots of
Destructive, yeah.
examples of that.
Mhm.
But if you don't have that balance where God is that center, where God is the thing that's
Mhm.
holding that balance, in all those are getting all messed up. Yeah, you get this toxic, you get this bad, evil man, you get all that. But when you're grounded as a man of God, like we're talking about today, then all those are in balance, or at least find an equilibrium. Maybe that's a better
Hmm.
word to say. There's an
Mhm.
equilibrium where they all find some sort of
Hmm.
symbiotic balance between each other. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we're trying to get back to, and to say, hey, stop letting society put you down. We need to bring some of these things back up. Maybe not so much. We're still in a time of peace, not like where we're in war yet, but we do have a spiritual battle going on, and I think
Oh yeah.
that's where I would I would bring up that's where men need to realize is that just in the spiritual realm, we weren't to be warriors physically. There's also that point there to also know how to be
Hmm.
that dangerous person.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian.
Yeah, so I pulled up. You had mentioned some of the statistics and so forth. Fatherless homes, Daniel. This one,
Hmm.
this one floored me. 85% of incarcerated youths come from fatherless homes.
Hmm.
That's high.
That's an
High.
insane number.
Hmm.
Like that's
That's
staggering.
crazy.
71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. So that's just two that I pulled up, the
Hmm.
two statistics. Um, I mean that kind of says it all right there.
Hmm.
Um, and therein lies the lethality of the enemy's attack. Because if he can get the father either out of the home or to such a place that he is complacent,
Hmm. Yeah.
then he has won the majority of the battle.
Yeah.
And we see
Mm.
this, like both of you
Hmm.
said, we see this running rampant in our nation today. Even when you watch, certain media, it's
Oh yeah.
amazing how many
Oh.
like shows you will watch where the father figure is painted as sort of this bumbling
Just a
idiot.
doofus.
Yeah, just a doofus.
Yeah.
Exactly. Totally
Commercials.
disconnected. Yeah,
Hmm.
commercials, same kind of thing. Painting this picture, or almost, I guess, normalizing this. And then, of course, we have now this attack on masculinity that we're seeing these days. Um, the enemy he is being allowed to win
Oh
because
yeah.
enough men are not standing up.
I,
Oh
Hmm.
man.
you look at even this thing of men play. I use the term man loosely there. Biological males playing women's sports, and it's obvious. I mean, this isn't chauvinistic. It's obvious. If I'm out on the golf course and a lady is happens to be playing, on the other cart or something, I'm playing with a guy and his wife is there, and I say, well, you have to hit off the same tee as I am. Well, she's probably, I mean, I'm not talking about the LPGA here. Um, I've probably got 100-yard advantage on her.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and who should be the number one people, the number one segment of society that's standing up against this? Men.
Women.
Hmm.
Oh, men.
Men.
Mhm.
No, if you say, well, the women should do that. No, where's the men that are protecting them from the men that are abusing them?
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we find ourselves in a very interesting point in society where men are so uh it's like not to be like a pity thing, but you start 10 steps behind because to be a man discounts you from having an opinion on almost everything to begin with.
Yeah.
So the reason I say women is because it should be quite outrageous to women that
Yeah.
this is happening too.
Mm.
But we're using that fatherless statistic because it's the evidence of what happens if you don't make choices now to become a man of God. You end up being that absent father, that that father that's not there. And I'm glad you make that distinction, Ryan, because there are many fathers out there who are couch potatoes, not setting a bit of an example for their children. They are there, but they're absent. They go to work, they make money, they make you feel bad about it, and then they start it all over again. And so there is that that complacency in modern day men. So
Let me call that what it is, Daniel. I know this is kind of a family show, but what you're talking about, the couch potato, a man that has a wife and children and is not engaged in his home is a sperm donor. Call it what it is. Okay?
Yep. That's wow. Man.
You guys want to challenge me on that one?
No,
there's nothing to challenge. It's true.
There's nothing to challenge on that one. I think I would just chime in with the point
I
of
just wanted to say it.
I get bleeped out on it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh my Lord.
People going out there going.
I think we've gotten to that point in society though where we actually do need to kind of breach some of these topics and go, yeah, we have a problem. If that's literally all you're gonna be, that's a problem. Not good. I think that there was something we've said from previous times, like from the mouse experiment we talked about. There was a phrase, hard times create hard men create good times create weak men create hard times, and a cycle continues, right? The cycle continues and over again, repeating. So we see how that played out. We see it played out with the mice experiment. We also see it here. However, I would like to throw in with a caveat. Back then, the cycle continued. I think now, though, we realize if you just stay in the world of entertainment in today's world, you'll think everything's fine. Everything's hunky-dory. News says this and this says that, and everything's fine. A certain group of people are bad, and these people are bad, whatever. Then, we got to get upset about that. But then when it comes to you either digging out for information yourself or you reading the word on your own versus hearing it from a pastor, you won't actually see it for yourself. And I think that's the danger of where we found that entertainment has become, especially in this Western society. We realize that entertainment will make you fall asleep at the wheel. You won't understand what's really happening, what's going on. Look at the couch potato, the sperm donor, as the who is completely involved in just the entertainment aspect, which whatever it's movies, games, sports, whatever it is, right? Just total distraction, just takes you away from what your family, which is number one reason. Like, again, we've said it now, we've repeated it, I think, every episode now. What's the primary ministry of you as a man in your home is to your wife, your family. Yeah. It's your number one goal. It's not, nope. It's simply that. So when all these other things happen, you're being distracted, you're being taken away from what your purpose is. And if you don't have a family, start preparing for that to be able to happen. Because if you look at today, everything seems fine and hunky-dory. But then when you realize what's really happening, the assault, the attack that is happening, you could be involved in the fight and become the hard man to create good times. Because that's what we're in need of majorly right now.
You just said, so I'm just going to jump in real quick. You just said something there, Dave. If you want to get married, or if you want to become a husband, begin preparing yourself. I want to throw something out there. If you're a single and you're looking for a spouse, stop surrounding yourself with single people. Surround yourself with married couples and learn from them. And then watch your significant other appear. Because honestly, as well, if you're wanting to find Mrs. or Mr. Right, and they come along and they see you surrounded by your constant group of single people competing for your attention, they don't want to hang around with that either.
Mm.
Just being blunt.
Interesting.
Yep, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and ooh, yes, here we go. Okay. Yeah, no, I love this subject because I look back at the ways that I would spend my time as a kind of mid-teenager, and I look back at that, and I really, I mean, I wasted a lot of time. I wasted so much time, and it's not like I don't know, just to hone in on that. I wasted so much time. And so when I look at these subjects right now, and I'm very passionate about them. I'm very passionate about young men being um, firm and upstanding and righteous
Mhm.
because the world is filled with just absolutely currently useless young men that are devoting their lives to things that will never give them anything.
Yeah.
They're devoting all of their time to things that cannot give them anything tangible, nothing that is actually rewarding.
Mhm.
And so I love those statements because it's the way to succeed. It's the way to actually establish good things in your life. And it's not to say that there's not that season for spending time with your peers and for
course.
that portion.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like when it comes time to like look around you and say, okay, I think it's going to be time for me to make the next step in my life soon. That's game on. You turn away from things and this is something I've heard before from young men and they've said, I just feel like it's really important for my future wife to like respect how I spend my free time. And
Wow.
load of garbage, absolute load of garbage. When you are getting married, when you are pursuing someone, you sacrifice the things that you value. Your free time becomes collective free time, and you choose together what you want to do. You don't bring what you desire and throw it in her lap and say, this is what you need to be okay with
Yeah.
if we're going to work out. That
Mhm.
is, yeah, it's a don't do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I've heard somebody say, marriage is a compromise. I disagree
Mhm.
because the word compromise denotes that one or the other is losing.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah,
should
it
be a
does.
win-win situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me go back to something. Somebody that you guys know, I've used his works through the years, and give him open credit to it. There are a few men, very few men, that radically affected my life. I can count them on one hand. One of those is Dr. Miles Monroe of blessed memory. I remember the first time that I ever listened to Miles Monroe's testimony online. I had the pleasure of meeting him a number of years ago, number of years ago. Tragically died in a plane crash on final approach to Nassau, Bahamas. I remember him talking about growing up in the Bahamas. He was his family was of course was black. They lived on the side of the island that had nothing. He grew up with him and his father and mother, and his I think it was like 8 children in a 2-room, 3-room shack that was built up off of the ground to keep the critters out. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. They lived in abject poverty. And Dr. Monroe, having been born into that situation, decided I must change my situation. And he decided to made some goals. He's the one that came up with the 5 questions of life. That wasn't on me. He's the one that I quote so many times. I quote him without quoting him because his words are a part of my life now. But he said, Dr. Monroe said, I decided that I was going to read the Bible. I was going to learn how to read the Bible, and I was going to pray. He said, I decided also at the same time that if I was going to affect other people, that I had to make some decisions in my life. Number one, he said, I was not going to become addicted to anything. because that would take me away from my goals. He said, I decided that I would not have relationships with a woman until I was married, because it would be possible that in that relationship, we would have a baby, and therefore my goals would be sidetracked. Now, his goals were righteous. His goals were totally righteous. And so he made decisions like that. Well, he ended up becoming very famous in the Bahamas, began a band, was paid to travel all over the country, all over the Bahamas, and then eventually all over the world.
Mhm.
He said, never chase money. He said, because if you find out why God put you upon this earth, money will chase you. Because people will chase you and pay you to find out what they need to know.
That's the truth.
Miles Monroe became a very famous man, writing, I don't remember how many books. He
A
knew
ton.
I mean, had audiences with presidents, with CEOs, with huge businesses would call him and say, we want you to come and speak. Why? Because he became a priest. He became a priest, just like Daniel said. Was he a warrior? Absolutely. He battled for the right thing, God's purpose in his life. Because of that, he became a husband and also a father. I challenge anybody out there, go on YouTube, Dr. Miles Monroe, and listen to his testimony and learn from that man.
As you were talking, I was thinking of King David as well, and how he was chosen in the eyes of God before he killed Goliath, before he was anointed for king, before he was married. God saw his heart in the quiet place, and then chose him to be king over his people. That should resound in young men everywhere, that king, all these men that we see in the Bible who stood for something, who were, did deeds of renown. People like King David, they established themselves in the quiet place with God first. They became that priest, that person who had intercession, who had time with God. And then David became a warrior. We read about his deeds with the lion and the bear. And then it wasn't until later that all that stuff was known, and then he became a husband after that. And so Hanok Young is just here, and I've never heard him say so many times within a few-day period of, we need to understand that our actions can change the world. I mean, that dude was he was recklessly zealous in his younger year. I mean, he did things that make your jaw drop to the floor. It's insane. But they had such an idea, such a firm belief that they could change the world with their actions. And I think that is really an admirable thing, and something that we need to remember, and that young men specifically need to remember.
I think I would like to just jump in there with that point of, this is the point where we're realizing that we've established there's a problem that's happening right now. And to those who are listening, what the enemy does not want you to do is he does not want you to start figuring out what your purpose is. That's the number one thing he's after. So as long as there's entertainment, as long as there's whatever distraction, that's your main goal. Whether that's it could be from money to whatever problems, there's always enough time to find out, what is my purpose here. So because Miles Monroe, wonderful testimony, absolutely recommend 100% to listen to that, because it's not just him, it's so many other people who've also found the same thing by following essentially the same formula. Why am I here? What is my purpose? And asking those 5 questions, then they run through that, and your purpose becomes pretty clear
Yeah.
because it's God-given, because it's who you belong to. And I think that's so amazing is that for whatever reason, whatever's happened from the past, something has caused us to then feel like there's fear of not wanting to know what that is or not to find out what God has for us, or we're just so terrified that we're going to have to be the thing we really fear the most, and we really don't want to become that.
Mhm.
If you know what I'm talking about, then maybe that it's time for you to start figuring out why you fear what you fear the most. Like, I don't want to go on the streets and start preaching the gospel. I don't want to be that person to, but what if that's you? What if that's you? What if you have a gift of speaking to people and you've never exercised it, so that's why you never know?
Yeah.
We can go through so many examples, and this is what we're talking about. Weak men not doing their job. It's hard to commit. It's hard what Miles Monroe did, where he said, enough is enough. I've had enough of this. I'm pursuing something greater. It's hard to do that. It's extremely hard to fight your flesh, but it's time to fight your flesh. If you're still in this place where you do not know and you're thinking about spouse and it's like that's coming later. Stop worrying about that. There's other things to worry about first. That will come along. Just
Seek first the kingdom of God, his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You were looking something up there, Ryan?
Well, I was looking, looking at the mice experiment, and kind of following through the sort of the order of things as chaos ensued. And the first thing that I noticed was that the mice, once they abandoned their purpose, the only thing left for them to do was to turn inward.
Mm-hmm.
And so they became very selfish. There was no, how can I put this? Without being a man of God and allowing him to dictate your purpose in your life, and then you like utilizing those tools to then turn outward to the aid of others, as we're called to do,
Mm-hmm.
that is what we're left with, is this turn inward. And this is what we're seeing in society, this worship of self, is because that's like we see in the experiment, that's the natural response. If you take away the true God, then self becomes your God.
Mm-hmm.
And self doesn't want to be a priest. Self doesn't want to be a warrior. And therefore, self can't be a good husband.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about self.
So it's kind of like the verses in, and I won't go to them, but I was thinking, I said to you guys last week about a verse and we never got around to it. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, in the last days, people will be lovers of themselves, and it goes on from there. I challenge anybody to go and read that. Let me give you a statement. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but life without a reason. It is dangerous to be alive and not know why you were given life. One of the most frustrating experiences is to have time but not know why.
Mm.
That is the opening of the preface of a book that I'm going to recommend. In fact, you guys, I mean, anybody, young adults, in our conferences that we've done together. And by the way, we need to make sure we do a commercial or announcement for what we have coming up next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just talk really straight for a second, or a minute or two, to specifically young people, youth, young people, young adults. I'm going to give you an assignment. If you're not willing to go through with this assignment, there's really no reason for you to ever tune into this program again, because you're not serious about life. You're playing games. You're a mouse sitting in the corner, putting their little gel on, grooming themselves. Okay? This is the book. I'm going to hold it up here. Dr. Miles Monroe, Pursuit of Purpose. I've read this book, I don't know how many times and probably need to read it again. The Pursuit of Purpose. You can go on Amazon, eBay, buy it used for, I think the last one I bought was probably about $5. If you don't have $5 to buy one, call me. And I'll tell you how to go find some money, because I'm not, this is not a GoFundMe. Okay. GoFundMe used to be when we got our lawnmower over to the neighbor's house and said, I'll cut your yard for $2. Okay. That's how we did GoFundMe. We didn't just sponge off of everybody else. So, this book, Miles Monroe, the Pursuit of Purpose, I challenge every single person out there, young or old, to get a copy of this and to read it. If you're planning to be married, do your spouse and your children a favor and read this book. If you're in a relationship with someone that you think is a spouse, is worthy of spousedom, new word. This is great marriage, premarital counseling, to read this book together. The principles in this book will define your life. It won't change your life. It will define your life. This is probably, in my opinion, next to the scripture, the most important book that I've ever read in my life. I've bought a number of, how many of these have I given away to young people, Daniel? I have no idea. And most of them, I shouldn't have given them one because they didn't read it. That's why I'm not going to buy you one. I'm going to tell you how to go find the money to buy yourself one. Woof.
Well, I think I wanted to jump off. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's no wonder if you've ever wondered why we named the show what we did, maybe by now you kind of have an idea. Because truly, and Ryan, as you pointed out, one of the most important factors in that whole experiment, in the experiment of our life, is purpose. Yeah. If we lack purpose, then it is a very quick downward spiral. And Dave, I'm glad you mentioned Jordan Peterson, because he's really amazing. And he talks a lot to young men. Mm-hmm. I've heard many a story of a young man listening to him, and because I would say he's in the same realm, as what Miles Monroe would talk about, as far as looking at your life and finding that purpose and trying to live with reason, understanding that you have reason to live, and and he's very practical, extremely practical. And that's what I love about him, is that even though he's highly intellectual, he can connect with you emotionally, and he gives you very practical tips as well to target things in your life and make them better, and then move on to the next thing and target that and make it better, and to escape the cynical spiral of life by doing that. And so, but yes, I remember the day that you prescribed that book to me to read, and I still remember very clearly the opening of Miles essentially talking to a very, very, very rich man who was just absolutely depressed. Yeah. Because money is an amplifier. It's not a corrupter, it's an amplifier. And so when Miles Monroe became very rich, it only amplified who he was inside. Wanted to further the kingdom of God. And so that is what the money did. It was that. And so you take a person who is purposeless, who is a worshiper of self, and then that money becomes destructive and depressing.
Yeah. This goes back to some of our earlier podcasts we did, talking about mentorship. It's how important that is. And for whatever reason, there's been such an assault for not to have a mentor, but to rely on yourself and not lean on any others. It's a huge problem. And then we had a podcast a while back, because Sill's probably one of my favorites, was talking about the uh, when the master gave one
Mhm.
5 talents,
Mm.
2 talents, and
Yeah.
1 talent.
Yeah.
That how do we see evidence of, if we look at it from just purely of they acquired something and then we're told to do something with it? We know for a fact that that happens because the statistics are scary. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know they're scary. People who win the lottery, how many times they either lose their life
Mhm.
or lose it all and are
Yeah.
far worse position.
Yeah.
Money, again, like you said, money is an amplifier. So when you look at all these things, you think this is my problem and this is my issue, and a lot of times you've been told what your issue is, like what issues you have, and you're not actually going to the ultimate decision maker going, why am I in the mess that I'm in, and can I change?
Yeah.
I'm willing to now change to do whatever it is, whether that means to take the discipline to read something, reading your Bible more, reading resources like we just talked about, or resources that are used to help you, instead of saying, well, nope, this is just my life. I'm just gonna just succumb to whatever now, and just this is
Mhm.
where I'm at. Eventually, would you rather start now or would you rather start later when it's the point of, okay, yeah, I have generational stuff that's bothering me. Okay, it's on me to fix that. It's on me to fix that now. It's my personal responsibility now. Let's fix it. Let's
Mhm.
deal with my money issues. Let's deal with my generational stuff. Let's deal with all that stuff and move forward in purpose. Because that's the thing. If we have purpose, a lot of times they even say a lot of these addictions just disappear.
Mhm.
Purpose is the number one contributor of why you have addictions. I think that even most research now is coming out. The reason why pornography is so bad, it's almost always linked to the person's purpose in this life is so low, and their self-esteem is so
Mhm.
low that they rely on that. They run to it.
Mhm.
It's becoming more and more evident that that is the
Yeah.
reason. So if you literally just find purpose, that literally can just be dealt with instantly. So everyone, I'll have people come up, and I thank you again for those who have, because it's really amazing when someone can open up that freely and talk about that. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's purpose. And then they'll start thinking about it and they go, oh wow, I realized that. It's like, but now don't just apply it to that addiction. Look at the broad aspect of addictions. When you have addictions, that it comes back to that over and over and over again. It's just screaming at you saying, this is the problem. That's it.
Mhm.
It's okay. Take a
Mhm.
big deep breath, read these resources we're talking about. You'll find a lot of that stuff starts to shed off because you're getting the key, you're getting an answer, and God's actually literally providing you an answer.
Yep.
But it
Mhm.
takes a little bit of work, just a little bit of
I
work.
Mhm.
I remember my wife and I we've done several like media fasts, just kind of depending on,
Mm.
sometimes we do it leading up to Yom Kippur, or just sometimes we just realize like we need to take a break here. And so there was one particular time, maybe a couple of years into our marriage, that we were like, we are watching too many movies. There's too much time spent on movies here. And so we took a media fast, and we were just spending more time doing this crazy thing. It's called prayer. Um, and God blessed that time so dramatically. It was like it was truly like a revival within us. And we were like we were asking each other, how did we ever have time for movies? Because we would get done with our like evening routines, dinner and clean up and all that kind of stuff, get the kids to bed, and we would just start talking and praying, and it was like, where did we find the time for movies? And that's happened several times, because we've gone through cycles. We kind of become complacent sometimes because we are in fact human. um and so, but we always circle back around. It's like, man, it is crazy how consuming it is and how easy it is to just say, oh, I'm tired, I just want to
Mhm.
like kick back and relax, and there's time for that. It's called Shabbat. uh, but truly, it's a very difficult cycle to break out of. But once you do, and you have a purpose and a goal, even if that goal is simply like, I want to read a book, like that's been me recently. Like I really love to read books. I did it a lot as a teenager, and have had trouble finding time to do it since having 4 children. But recently, we've kind of put another media fast, and I've just been reading. I've been loving it. Like I look forward every night to reading again, and it's just so easy to do. And I'm like, I don't want to watch anything because I replaced it with something purposeful and a specific goal. It's As simple as that.
Mm,
Oh, that's good.
Hmm.
Very good.
totally agree. It's awesome.
I was
So
kind
sometimes
of
thinking fast, that's the way to go. Go ahead, Ryan.
no, I was kind of perusing, and I've quoted Charles Spurgeon a good bit on this
Mhm.
show in the past, but um, this this kind of floored me what he had to say here, and it's a little long, but I think it's worth the read. He says, "When I say that a man in Messiah is a man, I mean that if he is truly in Messiah, he is therefore manly. There has got abroad a notion, somehow, that if you become a believer, you must sink your manliness and turn to milksop. It is supposed that you allow your liberty to be curtailed by a set of negations, which you have not the courage to break through, though you would if you dared. You must not do this, and you must not do the other. You are to take out your backbone and become molluscus. You are to be sweet as honey towards everybody, and every atom of spirit is to be evaporated from you. You are to ask permission of ministers and church authorities to breathe, and to become a sort of living martyr who lives a wretched life in the hope of dying in the odor of sanctity. I do not believe in such Christianity at all. The believing man, it seems to me, is the noblest style of man, the freest, the bravest, the most heroic, and the most fearless of men. If he is what he should be, he is, in the best sense of the word, a man all over, from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet. He is such a man because he has realized his own personal responsibility to God. He knows that to his own master he stands or falls, that he shall have to give an account in the day of judgment for his thoughts, his words, his acts. And therefore he does not pin himself to any man's sleeve, be he a priest or a minister, or whatever he may be called. He thinks for himself, takes the Bible and reads for himself, and comes to God in Messiah personally and of his own account. He is not content to do business with underlings, but he goes to the head of the great firm. Young men, to you I would honestly say that I would be ashamed to speak of a religion that would make you soft, cowardly, effeminate, spiritless, so that you would be mere simpletons in business, having no souls of your own, the prey of every designing knave. Young men, I have tried the faith of Yeshua Messiah, and I have found it to give me pluck, for that is an old Saxon word, but it is exactly what I mean. It puts the soul into a man, firmness, resolution, and courage."
Mm.
Mm. Man, that's so good. That is so good.
I don't think I could. I mean, that that is put
No,
perfectly.
it is put. What it made me think of, like, to go along with that, how he so eloquently put it, there is definitely he was definitely capturing something that exists of, oh, I follow God now and I have to not do these things anymore. And that's a very worldly way to look at it because everyone in the world does those things. And it does take a manly person or a person of conviction and valor to not do the things that everyone else does. But it's such a infuriating trick of the enemy to make you think that you're losing something and that you're less of a person because you can't do the things that you used to do or that the world does. And man, is it the opposite. And that was
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah, sure was. Sure was.
It's even amazing how even back then he was capturing something that was happening, and
Mhm.
we're seeing even more
Yeah.
of today. It's like it's gotten even worse in this line.
Mhm.
That's why we're speaking about this, but others are coming out, speaking about it more and more and more. That this idea that you're supposed to be a weak man as a believer is absolutely not true whatsoever, and should be frowned upon, and it should be encouraged. I would even challenge, if those who are listening that are part of congregations, there should be encouragement. A lot of times it's been for so long that, oh no, you can't be that way, you can't be that way. There should be encouragement by the mentors in congregations to bring out this more biblical masculinity, more biblical, and allow that to come out and allow that to come forth. And what that looks like, I think there's lots of different versions of, but the ability to say yes, that there's this a way of reaching out to not just keep pushing down, but to bring up. And I would say one of the things you could change is immediately, like one of the years ago, Mike came to us and said, stop calling them the next generation. It's the now generation. The
Rising
um
generation.
the rising generation. There's lots of words of encouragement saying now, move, do, don't wait. And there's some language that we've used for sure that doesn't allow for that opening. And I've even said like a lot of times like this end time talk. Okay, there's a lot of things in the that is correlating back to Revelation stuff. That's wonderful. It's great to get discussion. But if you say it around a bunch of young people, then and they haven't found their purpose, that can just suck them right out. It just that light just doesn't matter anymore. Because if I just
Steal
stay
their hope.
innocent, there's no
Yeah.
there's I'll just be accepted into the kingdom of heaven, and I'll just be riding on the clouds like little naked baby angels, just do, just doing nothing. And that's something you got to realize when we're talking about end time discussion. That's something to consider. It's wonderful to get into. Yes. There's something there though. You got to realize what it can do to those who are rising, who are up and coming, who are learning how to brandish their swords, so to speak. There's ways to encourage, and I think I would love to find out, or love to for you to message us if you found ways that you're encouraging of them brandishing their swords, of them becoming men of God, women of God. Like, what do you do in your congregations? That'd be so cool if you reach out to us.
I have a
Purpose
question.
of Nail.
I have a question before we kind of do a commercial. So I'm asking the three of you, when you think of a congregation, of men and women, and you think of a night that the men get together, what do you normally think of them doing?
Talking about the latest ball.
Yes, I would.
Or something furry that they shot.
Superficial
the last
topics.
thing in the room that's talked about is God.
Don't go too far. This is like kind of one sentence answer, Brian.
A group of men getting together. I was going to echo Mike's answer there as well.
And that's fine. I mean, that's the answer.
Superficial and drinking.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think of when you think of a group of women getting together from a congregation?
I don't want to go there.
But I think I see where Daniel's going with this.
They're talking about spiritual things.
It's women's prayer night.
Yeah. Women's prayer night.
I grew up.
Women's Bible study.
Relationships.
I grew up in that.
And I was just gonna say that, women versus men, but I wanted to throw it out there to drive the point home that men is pathetic. That's that's yeah. I mean, guilty.
So let's think about a program. Then I'll do a commercial here real quick. Let's think about a program next week on how do you find a mentor and how do you be a mentor? What does it take to be a mentor? Because see, you guys have all heard me talk about that. If you only hang out with people your age, you will only have as much wisdom as people your age. Now look around the crowd that you're hanging out with that's your age and ask yourself, is that who I want to be? If the answer is yes,
I hope it's a really high quality group of people. Like the Maccabees, Maccabee level stuff.
Yeah, if it's yes, you're probably in trouble and you need to go and make sure that you know how to flip hamburgers, because that's about as far as you're going to go in life. Nothing wrong with flipping hamburgers, but when you're 65. Yeah, I know. Right. Okay. All right. Quickly. So God willing, this week I will be your humble, one of the people yakking will be on an interview on God's Learning Channel. So that's coming up. I just got a call today on that. But the other thing is, Bezrat Hashem, God willing, on March 9th and 10th, we will be at Battlefield of Messiah, south of Cleveland. What's the town there, guys?
Chattanooga? Is that Chattanooga or Ringgold?
It's outside of Ringgold.
Yeah, outside Ringgold. I think
Yeah,
it's
somewhere
closer.
in that
Yep.
area. But if you type in Battlefield of Messiah, it's actually in a place called Battlefield. And we're going to have in the 2-day conference, Friday night and Shabbat. Friday night, I'm not sure what the time is. You can always, it's going to be on Facebook. Probably going to be about 6:30. But we will have myself, Mr. Josh Waller of Hayavel, his wife Caitlin, and leading worship during that time will be none other than Ryan Cribbs, Daniel Clayton, David Covert, not necessarily in that order.
Everyone
gonna
knows
be
Dave's on
that.
top.
Yeah, it's going to be Israel. Time to begin engaged. It's one thing to stand with Israel. It's another thing to be engaged. And I got a wake-up call on that one yesterday, gentlemen. We are currently in day 143 of the current Israel war. There are still 134 hostages alive or dead. We're not sure. There's been over 14,300 people wounded. Over almost 300 soldiers have lost their lives. Yesterday morning, one of the first things I do in the morning is I check the Israel news. And I kind of hold my breath as I do. Yesterday morning, I saw the headline of one of the commanders that had been killed. He was part of the Givati Brigade, a brigade that I was a part of a celebration that they did. One of the parts of this evening was to honor 14 of their fallen of this specific unit. Yesterday, the name was released, and that number is now 15. That one took a different level because I don't know him. I don't know if I saw him or was introduced to him in, face to face, but it's a person that I was in the same room with. And a friend of mine who is in that same brigade is stepped in to take his place. The war rages in Israel. And next Friday and Shabbat is not just a night to come together and get our little warm fuzzies and our little spiritual goosebumps and things like that, do a little dancing and whatever, but it's a weekend to decide where you stand with the land and people of Israel. Final thoughts, guys.
That's it for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Same here. I think that's a good way to leave off.
Okay.
But-
Get Miles' book. All right.
Mhm.
If you're not going to read this, I'm serious, guys. If you're not willing to read this book by Miles Monroe, there's no reason for you to ever tune into this program again, because you haven't made the decision that you're going to have to actually make your life make a difference. Because see, the Father, the Creator, the one who gave you breath, has plans for you, for good and not for evil, to give you a life and a hope and a future and a purpose. But when he said, I'll give it to you, he didn't just say, it's just going to be, it's going to just kind of float down. You may have to do something to get after it and to find that. Till next week. See you then.
We'll see
Next
you.
time.
Yeah.
You alone hear my every prayer. You're the God who's always there.